KingofPodcasts.com proudly presents The Wrestling is Real Podcast, because wrestling needs us. Brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. KOP is all about Amazon, and so should you. Go to King of Podcasts' special link at KingofAmazon.com.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to episode 560 of the Wrestling is Real Podcast. I said 569 last week, didn't I? Kind of screwed up the numbers, and I probably did that for a couple of weeks, but I had to go back and recalculate myself. It's 560, episode 560 of the program. Thanks for being here. Thanks for finding the show like you do through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio. Just finished Dynamite, flipped into NXT a little bit here and there. And look, I'll tell you what, there is a time once again in the middle of the off season of WWE, the WrestleMania off season, which I like to talk about. Well, we're right in the middle of it, smack dab in the middle of it. We have already been well removed from SummerSlam. Survivor Series is coming up in front of us. Doesn't matter too much. No. Hell in a Cell, no, not really. TLC, no. But those are the things we're looking forward to the end of the year. And as we knew things were going to go ahead and bring themselves back to a lull with the company, these trying to make some measures, short-term measures, to try to keep the ratings up. Now, unopposed, NXT's done such as that, getting over 800,000 viewers. How will it do head-to-head this week, given the chance that both AEW and NXT had their own chances to kind of go split apart and build their own audiences outside of the normal lines drawn for the Wednesday Night Wars? Well, they might take a little bit of a hit, no doubt. They could take a hit because of the NBA playoffs and many other things like that. We know. But what's more important here is that football came back. And Monday Night Football showed up. Raw's ratings took a hit. And didn't help that last week was a Labor Day weekend. So a couple of weeks of 1.6 million viewers. Meanwhile, SmackDown's doing fine, getting better viewers now as a result. And there's a lot of things going on with that. Now, that doesn't mean that Raw has a complete loss right now in what they're doing. There were a couple of things I could say that they actually did really good with. I think the steel cage match with Dominic Mysterio and Seth Rollins was actually quite good. And I thought that the confrontation with Retribution and the Hurt Business gave us something to look at and actually enjoy, because Hurt Business looks like something we want to get behind. I mean, we still think it's supposed to be a heel faction, but for whatever reason, this heel faction now wants to go ahead and take out Retribution because they need to be top dog. So, for what it's worth, a heel versus heel faction feud. Let's see how that works. And again, we saw some of the people that are going to be part of this group, Donovan Dijakovic, Dio Madden, and others. I don't know how much that's going to work out, but again, there's a lot of Retribution that got slammed down thanks to the Hurt Business. And so it is what it is. Meantime, creative. No matter what you say, listen, there's a high spot right there for that on Raw. When it comes to SmackDown, Roman Reigns attached to Paul Heyman is now the Brock Lesnar. And it fits. I don't know why it is, but they're booking Roman Reigns, and it just didn't take much time. Just the heel turn and the Paul Heyman attachment. And instantly, Roman Reigns is now arguably a draw again. He's now a draw if you get live crowds. People will go to the arenas to go see him on SmackDown or a pay-per-view. But yet he does not have any real opponents to work off of right now because there's nobody that's been really built. Same thing for Drew McIntyre. I mean, you want to go and put Keith Lee into the mix? Sure. But Keith Lee's star power has been badly bruised and beaten at this moment, from his promo cutting to the way he's been booked in matches. And creative is all over the place still, except for a number of stars that are solidified in their spot. Otherwise, they have nothing else for everybody else. They're taking some old ideas, bringing them back. We're going to learn about what some fans, some of the IWC is saying about it, those that have written about it as journalists. we're going to hear a little bit of what is being done behind the scenes, how some of the wrestlers are actually contributing now to creative. Some of those that have been there for a long time trying to contribute to their characters, because of course they really cannot rely on the creative team to help out. Because really, I don't think there's any direction of the corporate creative chaos that is brewing right now in Stamford, Connecticut. And let me tell you like this as well. When you have this group only working the Thunderdome in Orlando, they're not going to live events on the road everywhere, correct? They're doing the shows. They're not having to do a lot when it comes to travel schedules, who's going to be arriving, who's not. They really know what they have with the venue that they have in the Thunderdome and what they could be doing inside or outside. So the question is, with all this going on, why is it still so hard for the creative team to get their shit together? That's what I want to talk about, because I'm really concerned about it. And I think it's one of those times, once again, where I did say I was going to talk about creative and kind of just go through some criticism and just take some ideas that people are trying to put out there. I haven't done this in a while, but there have been some ideas brought out. And I thought a couple of them were interesting, so I want to bring up some of this. And this is what it is. Again, what happens is, with creative right now, is you're just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. That's what it is. Not anything of continuity, not anything of real creativity that creates something of a star significantly different than who they were in NXT or anywhere else. Okay, and this is the thing, is that there are some people that are offering their opinions and their insight as to what they should do, but it's not any good. Or it might have some ideas, but again, there's some logic that needs to be brought into some of the questions. I'm not going to just shoot down everybody that's trying to bring anything up, but I'm going to take a few things that I did read about this week, and I want to bring it up and see if any of it makes sense and if any of it should be applied to what they're doing. And the reason I am a little bit discouraging about my comments that I'm going to make about what some of the feedback has been that I looked at is because of the fact that we're looking at a corporate structure. And of course, everything goes down a chain of command. And we have to consider that Vince McMahon is still in charge. And we have a lot of deniers out there. A lot of people that just are in denial that Vince still has the magic to make sure everything can go right. I think he has moments of brilliance still. But overall, he needs new structure to get this right. And I don't know if he can be the end-all, be-all decision maker for the good of the company. I mean, to keep things up as he has, sure. I mean, I think it could still be in a way, but I think there have to be people that can be out there that can override what thoughts Vince might have. And that he just cannot just go ahead and just shoot something down if something's proper. He's got to be able to let things slide through and let it happen. He just cannot just shut things down. And most importantly, he cannot be shutting down rewriting scripts at the last minute for Raw or SmackDown. He can't be doing that anymore. I understand he has the right to do that, but it's just not good business anymore for him to do that. It's not like he could do it like it was back in the day. Sure, he could write it himself, but again, if you don't have the right people that could do it for you, this is where, even at the highest end of a hierarchy for any company, any corporation, you have to be able to delegate to people that you trust, that you can entail with details and trust they're going to put out a good product. You have to have delegation. And he doesn't want to delegate it all. It's pretty apparent. I don't think I'm talking out of line here. I don't have any kind of secret security footage that tells me what's going on in Titan Towers. I just see it from afar. And I'm sure a lot of people see it the same way. So now that I've prefaced all of that, I'm going to go into NoDQ.com. So Mr. Tito, who writes for NoDQ, he wrote a job application to join WWE Creative. Pretty extensive. Let's go into what he says. Of course, he says that he wants to offer his expertise and he's offering it for free. Now, here is into his business plan. He talks about his experience. So, his experience shows that he's been watching wrestling since '88 and 15 years experience working in a corporate climate. master's degree in business-related field. He's been writing columns since 1998, so he's been around since the Attitude Era, writing for Lords of Pain and No DQ to the present. And he has produced and funded various wrestling promotions himself, independently. Okay. He says, first, go deeper on the third-party service ban, re-implement kayfabe. Now, he says in this part, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'm just going to go through the highlights here. So he agrees with having the wrestlers limit themselves on third-party service providers, Twitch, Cameo, YouTube, etc. But he would extend it further into social media or podcasts. That WWE should put a gag order on wrestlers advertising their real names or displaying anything from their real life online. Wrestlers should never discuss pro wrestling as scripted or even fake, even while never revealing how they take bumps or moves or holds. Okay, with that, again, this is the case where you just can't play the fake card anymore. The kayfabe can't be done here. I think kayfabe in terms of if you're trying to show what's going on in the storyline, yes, if somebody's injured, keep them out. Okay? Maybe at least kayfabe the injuries. Kayfabe what's going on in the storylines. Do that. But what they're doing is outside as characters anyway. They're playing characters on television, and for them to go ahead and be themselves online or be Instagram influencers, listen, for them to go ahead and make extra money, I'm not going to deny Mandy Rose or Sasha Banks or anybody else to be able to get some extra endorsement deals, or Big E or Kofi Kingston or whoever, or The Miz. Listen, the precedent's already been there, because look at all the other things that are going on with some of these wrestlers and what they were able to do in terms of expanding their horizons. Like, they just cannot be held down. Their contract does not allow it to be. If you're expecting this, according to this third-party service ban, then there has to be more money brought in, and the social media needs to be propped up so that in the WWE universe, it can be done so. The universe has social media out there and a lot of different ways for people to get that. Now, they have that with the network. They have the bump. They have, Talking Smack and Raw Talk that have returned, things like that. You could do some of that. But again, you have to be able to go ahead and let them engage in social media because they have big audiences. But what needs to be happening more is what I've said in the last couple of weeks, that the social media needs to go and stand out for these wrestlers so they can be noticed more in the limelight and they can draw more people to the shows. Because the real advertising is not going to come from traditional unless WWE is putting a lot of digital ad spends, which I don't think they're doing except for pay-per-views. So if you're going to do anything, listen, they have their relationships with Fox and USA Network, and they're leveraging those. But when it comes to social media, this is where the stars need to go and do their own thing, build their own audiences, and get people to come watch their shows. Because the whole point is, these people want to be promoting something. And here's the thing. Sasha Banks, I don't believe, could get to the level of traffic that she gets right now, or the level of being stanned by all these different fans out there, if she was not a WWE superstar. I mean, if she did not have her time at NXT and on the main roster and all the titles she's won and all the appearances she's made, looking great in the ring, looking great in person, all together, and all the time she spent with her fans, I think it would be different. Now, she would still be a significant Instagram influencer or doing something else. Who knows what she could be doing? But for her, she's not just modeling. She is a performer. She's a sports entertainer. And in the entertainment role, she needs to be able to go ahead and have people promote what she's doing. The reason she's famous. She's truly famous because of her work in WWE, and all the other ones are the same way. Dolph Ziggler, the same way. It's all like that. Mandy Rose, same thing. But the thing is that they're going to go and use their own names and products out there, sure. But again, they need to be able to make, first and foremost, that their stardom, their fame, their fortunes, that they're able to get as a result. Might not be getting the fortunes from the company itself as an independent contractor, but as a part of that echelon, they should be able to go and make money. Now, maybe doing Cameo or Twitch, I could understand that part. Like, I think controlling it to just being kept to videos, short clips, things like that, probably. And there should be some point where the stars are kind of working together, where WWE is kind of working and kind of coordinating with the staff. Because right now, some of the stars might have a little bit of trouble of communicating, because when there are certain things that are going on, when we had, the assault and the claims that were going on a few weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, rather. Well, we had that. And then now Lana looks like apparently she's going to be taking some time away from social media because it's been hurting her as a person. A lot of bashing on her on social media, and that's undeserved. It's not right. But that's what's going on. And there's a lot of that because remember, first and foremost, we're seeing other stars that are out there. Maybe not just because of their exposure on TV, but again, Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose are taking a little bit of time off because of what happened to them. And I'm sure this particular lunatic fan, lunatic, schizophrenic, psychopath, he probably was following along on social media, which I believe he was. And the whole thing is, it's a little bit, there has to be some vigilance, a little bit of transparency, and knowing where your bread is buttered, knowing where your bulk of your money is coming from, where your stardom is coming from. Because, of course, this company can make you lose at any time. And that's the point. So I don't like so much the kayfabe idea, except for the fact that it's done in the ring. Not what they're doing outside in terms of their characters when they're just, playing to their audience. I mean, what are you going to do? I know you want them to stay as a heel or a face. Yeah, I could agree with that to a point, sure. But again, people want to be able to just get to know their stars. So again, at this moment more than anything else, because we don't have live events for all these stars to be seen at, it is still a bit inherent upon those stars to continue to keep engaging with the audience. Because that's the only way we can get people to kind of still stay engaged and watch. Because they can't go to the arenas. They can't buy the merch. Because in some way, some shape or form, that is still helping out to buy merch. That is still helping out to keep people to come back and watch the shows. You still need that. And hopefully more people will come from that. That's what you have to hope. Next, he says, bring back the top brands. Like NASCAR-owned teams. So he's talking about trying to resurrect the brands in some way, shape, or form with, say, the Shield, Evolution, NWO, DX, Four Horsemen, etc. He says he proposes bringing all of them back, but have it structured similar to NASCAR with owners having multiple racers within a team. So have owners of a brand, and then you have some of the original stars that were part of that faction be the owners, like almost a NASCAR thing, and actually play. He's basically talking about having what I've talked about, bringing, what AEW is doing right now. Bringing some of these legendary stars with great promo ability and status, and a legacy behind them to come back out and represent and help build up new stars. Right? I mean, because look, MVP in a way has been doing that. Paul Heyman does that. And you just got to ask yourself, okay, well, when I look at what Taz and Jake Roberts and Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson are doing, helping the stars in AEW, I think it's helping a lot. And it's not everybody's getting that, but I think there's a lot of that going on that really helps out. I think Tully Blanchard attaching himself to FTR is great. Sean Spears, not so much. We haven't gotten there yet. But Taz attaching himself to Ricky Starks and Brian Cage, I love. And I think there is some credence to what is being said here. Sure, we could go with that. I'll move along. And then he says the brand extension should be finished. Yeah, I'm fine with that. It doesn't make difference to me. I think you could do something where you do have not the... I don't think you have the... what was the rule again? I forget it now. I almost forgot. I have forgotten it. The rule that people can come to multiple brands. I just think that you could keep certain champions on certain brands. The champions stay to the brands, but the other stars don't. They only stay there when they're in a feud with somebody in that brand. But the champions just stick to the brand. So if you want to keep the Universal Champion over on SmackDown, sure. You want to keep the WWE Champion over on Raw, sure. Yeah, keep that. You want to make U.S. title where it is, whatever. But then again, the title holder stays in the brand that they associate with. We could do that. But then you rotate them and get them out there. I mean, I think you could do something like that. I don't know what else you do, but I think you could do something like that and you can make that work. And then we don't need the freaking draft. You just make it where certain stars move over and they don't have to worry about that, right? The wild card rule. That's what it was, the wild card rule. Damn, I had to go looking for it again. I've chosen to try to forget about it. Let's just say it like that. Now he moves along and says, eliminate superstar shakeups if the brand extension must remain. I just think that you just move the champions and switch them over sometimes, where they go ahead and move over to another brand and then they just switch brands over. That's how it works, I think. Or you just keep people to the certain brands, but then you have new stars. If you need new opponents for these champions, then they cross over to shows when they need to go. So they just come over all of a sudden, and then it does create some freshness, doesn't it? So all of a sudden, somebody comes over to the other brand to go ahead and confront. Why not do that? I don't think there'd be any problem with that. He also says, treat both Raw and SmackDown like sports franchises with general managers. I don't know if I want the general managers. I'm not much about that. He says, respect the title belts. Well, I mean, there's not much prestige behind only the two major championships, the men's titles. The women's titles, no. I mean, there's some prestige based on who holds the belts, and if they're held for a long time. So Bayley holding the SmackDown Women's title and the Raw Women's title being held by Asuka was held multiple times, sure. But there's not much else after that. And I don't know what you do in order to keep some relevance behind. I think what you do is you make contenders, but you don't make number one contenders overnight. I think the way you build the contenders to get to the titles, the title matches, they have to change that. Not so much beat the clock, not so much gauntlet matches, not so much battle royals, not so much. They need to find another way to amplify that feuds that could be for number one contenderships. Make feuds based on that. And then keep the champion around in the mix, kind of triangle it. I think you could do something like that. I don't know. It's a thought. He also says reducing gimmick matches. Well, you know what? The gimmick matches are probably good for television because they need to keep these gimmicks on. But the thing is, you need to keep proper stipulations. They need to be mutual stipulations in these matches. And the truth is, yeah, we could get rid of some of the fights where we have hardcore street fight, no holds barred. We could do some other things, I guess. I mean, there's just not much else to go with. I mean, they just need to find other ways to be creative. And this is where I think AEW is kind of beaten at right now. They are getting creative. Now, they didn't have the parking lot fight. We've seen that before, but it was pretty creative tonight with Best Friends and Santana Ortiz. The Mimosa Mayhem match was quite interesting and creative. That was a Chris Jericho creation. The Stadium Stampede, I thought, was really good. I mean, they're coming up with different ideas. They had blood and guts, which you never got the chance to do. And of course, they just can't be going back to certain matches just to bring certain matches together. I just don't know. I mean, there's things you could bring back. Like King of the Ring is always pretty good to do. Like those last couple of tournaments they've done for that has been pretty good. You could do tournaments as well. I mean, you could just do certain things just to kind of like work it up. But I don't know what you do right now. It's like it's pretty rough. And doing like 5-pack, 6-pack challenges, it's different. But the only way you make the prestige around the belts is to make the people that are contenders much stronger. You have to make the mid-card a lot stronger. Because if you have more opponents that are going to be tougher opponents, tougher adversaries for the champions to have, then that creates prestige towards the belt. Because we see across the board how in other organizations there's a lot of different contenders that are going for belts. And it's a pretty strong holdup of who's out there going after titles at any time. Any given time. He recommends written to replay for title matches. I'm not so much into that. It doesn't make a difference. I know trying to make it more sports dynamic, but look, there's a pure title tournament that's going on with Ring of Honor, and I think it's starting in October. Ring of Honor comes back, and they're not going to have people in the arena, no crowds, but they're going to be coming back with new episodes. So they're going to do more of a boxing, MMA, wrestling, where they're going to have like a traditional sports kind of feel in the ring type of feel. So we can see if that kind of works in a smaller environment and see if it experiments where WWE could just go and steal the idea. He says, last hour Monday Night Raw show you mature audiences. Well, that's what Raw Underground's supposed to be. And I don't think mature makes a difference anymore. I just don't think it makes a difference. I think, yeah, be mature just to be, but don't be mature just to be mature. Don't just bring back Attitude Era. What we need to do is they have to find another era. It can't just be rehash the Attitude Era, rework it, do it all over again. That's what they're doing now. I mean, Brock Lesnar reincarnated as Roman Reigns, and her business being just it's just another form of evolution. It doesn't make a difference here. It doesn't. And so I don't know what they're trying to do here. Trying to create the whole dynamic. I feel like Dominic Mysterio feels like the next Shane McMahon, in a way. But I think Dominic Mysterio probably has better wrestling ability than Shane McMahon does. Regardless, Shane McMahon has some stones to go and do some of the moves he's done. So don't get me wrong. It says rebuild the tag team division with flashy gimmicks. So yeah, create your British Bulldogs, Heart Foundation. Create tag teams that are tag teams. Well, we have Viking Raiders and Street Profits and New Day and Usos. I don't know what else you want. I don't know what else is going to be flashy gimmicks. Flashy gimmick. You thought War Raiders were, as Viking Raiders, you think that would be a gimmick that would stand out. Street Profits, talking about flashy. But that's not working. I don't think gimmicks in the tag teams are making any difference. I think they've been doing that, but it doesn't make it much. Bring back Stephanie McMahon to work the women's division, manage it as a heel. No. I don't think we need Stephanie out there anymore. I don't think McMahon's in the ring make any difference now. I just don't think we need to go back to that. We had Shane out there for a long time. Did that really make much of a difference? I think we don't need anything like that. Now, the next thing he brings up is like not bad. More psychology matches, less scripting on promos. Yeah, I agree with all that. But again, I just don't know if they give enough effort to make the wrestlers really go ahead and get well in tune with their characters. Like, there has to be more layers to each character. There has to be more things just to make a heel. Because really, even like the top stars, there's not much more layers to who they are. I feel like Drew McIntyre and Bayley still don't have that many layers to who they are. Remember, Drew McIntyre was actually doing some pretty creative, pretty cool sounding promos, but he doesn't have a crowd to work off of. And with Bayley, it was always what she was doing to bounce off of Sasha Banks. But standalone, does she really stand out? Not so much. I don't think so. So these are the things that we have. And honestly, we don't have anybody of the, and really the psychology comes from the heels. Which heels really come out with real psychology, real deviate, the real being real devilish like Dusty Rhodes would say. Who's got that? Like, where's the real deviousness of managers coming in to intervene? We don't see that much either. None of that's going on. So that's another thing that could be thought about. And it's just not there. Now, he also talked about certain wrestlers that he thinks should make changes. Talks about Roman Reigns. I don't think they should change anything with Roman Reigns right now. I think the changes that were made to Roman Reigns are good. I wouldn't change anything right now. I want to see where Roman Reigns goes. This direction works. I don't think it makes a difference with him being a heel right now. Even though with everything that's gone on, I like the story they told with him in not too much time. It made all sense to me how Paul Heyman kind of just wrapped it up together. I thought the promo 2 weeks ago was fantastic. And it made sense. Like, everything right now with Roman Reigns is in flux. It's good. It's really good right now. That's one of the real things I'm really enjoying on SmackDown. So that needs to stay as it is. Braun Strowman, I don't understand him going to Raw Underground. That didn't make any sense to me. And I think, yeah, they made him a heel, but man, he needs to be a heel on Raw. I don't know. I think you move him to Raw and you make him go after McIntyre next. After the feud that he has either with Keith Lee or Randy Orton. I think Braun Strowman goes over there. I don't know. But right here, I don't see much going on with it. I just think you move the guy over there. But obviously, Strowman's like to run SmackDown. There obviously is a reason for that. But with Braun Strowman, I just don't know what to do with him. I think it's another guy that needs to be put up with a manager. Another big guy just needs to be accompanied by somebody. I don't know who you bring on. There's got to be anybody else you can bring on. I think you bring an old school manager that comes in and just, like, you know what? This is how I look at it. Braun Strowman should be booked kind of like how Vader was. He needs his Harley race. That's what he needs. He needs his Harley race, and Braun Strowman just needs to be the heavy. That's it. Because Strowman is still Big Show right now. No matter how many times you kind of just tweak him, make him Strowman Express. Now you don't put a shirt on him. It doesn't make a difference. I think you need him accompanied with something else. The act needs something to attach him to. I mean, I don't think it's that hard to find somebody to work him with. And he doesn't need to talk that much. He should have never been talking that much at all. Now, Mr. Tito brings up the fact about having him work like a Goldberg, like Killing Machine. Sure. But you got to give him somebody. I'll tell you what, if Paul Heyman didn't have Roman Reigns, I think Braun Strowman would be a great fit with Paul Heyman. Oh my God. Monster Among Men, give Paul Heyman Braun Strowman to work off of. Why can't Paul Heyman take a second counsel upon him? Why can't we have that? I don't know. But there's no reason why we can't have him there. And also, we already know that Braun Strowman's matches are not that good, so you got to have something else to work off of to make the matches interesting. So there's something else to watch besides Braun Strowman in the ring. Okay. He brings up Bray Wyatt and The Fiend. I think adding Alexa Bliss into the mix and making her the Sister Abigail, I think that right there, and dressed as the Harley Quinn character, by the way, like playing Harley Quinn to his Joker, yes, I love it. I love it. I think that's a really good move. Put them together. Absolutely. And it doesn't need to be anything romantic or sexual. No. But I think you can make Alexa Bliss become the Sister Abigail that controls The Fiend and Bray Wyatt. And again, you shouldn't be anything like that because it's sister. So Brother Bray acts brotherly to his sister, Abigail, and then there's like an evil switch that comes on for both of them, where Alexa Bliss is like the Harley Quinn character and then turns evil. She has her own alter ego as Sister Abigail with the veil and all that stuff, right? You put that together, you got the two dynamics, there you go. And let them run roughshod. I mean, why not? That's another idea they could go with. And I think maybe they're going in that direction, but they should. They should follow along with that. They had some ideas from the swamp match that they took right there that they should follow up on and build to that. Not worry about wobbly walrus at the Firefly Funhouse. He brings up Apollo Crews. Anyways, Apollo Crews right now, working as he is right now against Hurt Business. I mean, you could put him there. I just don't know what else you'd do with Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews just been badly used. Putting with Titus O'Neil, doing what they did with him, it just, I don't know, man. Apollo Crews, I just wish he was working anywhere else. That guy should be back on the indie scene somewhere, working Uhaa Nation once again, and just live off the legacy he's got here in WWE. But the problem is, this is the simple mid-card thing like anything else. They have nothing for Apollo Crews. There's nothing for him to do. And how many times have we heard that? We don't have anything for him to do. Renee Young actually mentioned that in an interview. That she just felt like there was nothing they had for her to do. And I don't know why they keep people like this, but again, this is the AEW dynamic that they just feel like, oh, well, they got to just keep these people because we can't let them go to anywhere else. What a horrible way to go and run a business. You have to keep people away from, again, make your product better, and you're not playing defense and spending money on it. Because really, what are you really doing by consistently putting NXT up against AEW? Sure, you're putting money in front of the problem. I mean, you're putting something ahead to kind of hold down the ratings and all. But really, you're just spending money on the problem and you're losing money at the same time. It's a losing proposition, regardless if you think you're getting little victories by bringing the AEW ratings down a little bit. By what, 100,000? Does it really make a difference holding them from getting 1 million viewers and maybe more to holding them down to 800,000 just to make your product go lower? That doesn't make any sense. Hasn't made any sense since they moved it. They go on to Randy Orton. He says he needs a stable. I agree. I don't see where Randy Orton doesn't kind of, I mean, yeah, I'd make him a stable, but I think if you make him kind of fit in, I don't know where you put him. Randy Orton will always have a place for something. It just depends on what the story is and what comes with it. I guess that's what it is. If you need to have Randy Orton do something, you know what? Move him over to SmackDown, make him an opponent for Roman Reigns. There. Take that. Randy's the face. Yeah, I like that. Randy is the in-between face going up against Roman Reigns. We haven't seen that match yet, have we? We might have, but we never saw it for a title. So let's do it. I like it. So Seth Rollins needs positive vibes. No, Seth Rollins just needs a full change. I like to see Seth Rollins go psychotic. I mean, let's just get him out of his mind. Make him a full-fledged, nut job. Just something else for him. Something different. But again, I guess you keep him as is. Whatever. I think you make Seth Rollins just, I don't know, if you maybe just turn him back face. Maybe you just recreate another Shield around him. You could do that. Make him try to say, hey, he wants to just recreate the Shield, build it back up. He doesn't have Roman. He doesn't have Dean. Let's just make a new Shield. Let's just call it something else. I think him being built along with other stars, I mean, not working the heel part with Murphy, I don't think that's the right idea. But I think you could put him with some other stars, and you can make him kind of like be the leader for it, of a stable. I think that's where, instead of Randy Orton getting a stable, I think Seth Rollins should get another stable. Fits better when he was with the Shield, as opposed to being by himself. Even with the Authority, he had people around him. I think that still works for him to do something like that. Keith Lee, he says U.S. title or IC title first before main roster world title contenders. I don't know. I don't think Keith Lee should have ever been moved up right now if they didn't have anything ready for him. But they've used him badly. Same thing with Matt Riddle. It's not like he doesn't deserve the main roster. Never said that. He deserves the call up. But he deserves to be called up right. Now, there's more he talked about here. I'm going to leave that there because there's more to be said that other people are talking about. Another story that I saw look really interesting was What Culture. And I'm like, this is really interesting you're bringing up this idea. They say that WWE should eliminate NXT. That's a pretty wacky idea. So the story from What Culture, they're trying to say that, in theory, WWE insists on developing talent in-house instead of pretending to. So they say basically that a raw, promising wrestler debuts on the developmental program, develops just as they connect with the crowd and refine their act. They jump to the main roster, more or less TV ready. And this is how the old developmental system worked. So yeah, they did it in Ohio Valley, they did it in Deep South, they did it in FCW. Yeah. So he brings up the point, or this writer brings up the point of how Ohio Valley Wrestling was able to go and get Brock Lesnar, John Cena, Randy Orton, and Batista emerging to change the complexion of the company. But they had flawed countless acts in the old system from OVW to Deep South and FCW, and they created a homogenized approach to talent development which fell into systemic disarray. Triple H recognized the flaws of the system, and that men managed the careers of goose shit green talents, he calls it, who were trained to move the same way, much less work the style, and seize control from John Laurinaitis in 2011. NXT would be a hybrid pitch to the hardcore set, a developmental show, and a big-budget super indie with a feel-good vibe and a theme of progression, highlighted by the sort of incredible name talent Vince McMahon is reluctant to push. And you can trace this back to the Western expansion of New Japan Pro Wrestling. NXT in early 2018 all but abandoned these developmental pretense. Yeah. And they stuck to pillaging Ring of Honor talent and others. And this is really because All Elite Wrestling All Elite Wrestling has predetermined the direction of NXT. Isn't it amazing? All Out. Really? Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Adam Page, they really did make a dent into changing and forcing a different course of direction for NXT. So they're not wrong on that, but I would not give it to NXT. I just think you need to find out. They need somebody else to work the Performance Center, make that into a power plant, and I just don't think you have an NXT. I mean, maybe there is no NXT. You keep it there, but I don't know if you could do that anymore. I think the NXT project, it could be a bit of a loss. I don't think that this writer's wrong. Because right now, they have a lot of great wrestlers. But again, they're at the level of the indies. And they're never going to be considered main event stars like they should unless they are under the realm of the Performance Center for the longest time. And they are croned and crafted, and they are WWE creators, let alone. Okay, because then that's all there is. But right now, the reliance in the main roster is not from the NXT talent. They gave up on that. Now it's people that have come back. MVP, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley. Drew McIntyre, it's all like that. AJ Styles. It's people that came into the company from somewhere else. It's not a great answer to anything. It's a short form. It's really a short-term answer. And it's the worst short-term answer. This is the next best thing they can do because they can't bring back part-timers. They can't bring back people from the Attitude Era or any other eras because they're too old to work. That's where they are. You just can't keep going back to The Undertaker, right? They can't. I'm moving along on the story. They say that NXT has much to do with this feeling because the debutantes that should function to create new chapters have already gathered considerable dust. This isn't helped, of course, by the fact that Vince McMahon is now largely incapable of effectively promoting the smaller and faster talent he isn't predisposed to getting behind in the first place. It's easy to be snarky, but if one is disillusioned by the system, it's very easy to be reductive about it because the approach is so basic now. Sign, name indie talent, give them a new name, depending on the direction of the wind on any given day, give them a preposterous nickname, like the Archer of Infamy. In lieu of an unauthentic feeling, three-dimensional character, iron out perceived flaws that quite often are selling points, train them in the anti-art of cutting scripted promos, in the final lick of polish, carefully curate an entrance pose that often no-sells the situation they find themselves in and breaks the spell of suspended disbelief. He's not wrong. All these links to these stories I'm going to put into the show description, so you can look for that for yourself. WrestlingIsReal.com to find it. Or wherever you find the show, you'll find it there. I'm not going to go any more into that. Michael Sidgwick writes the story. He's not wrong. NXT has now relinquished its position as a cool main roster alternative. It's now being used desperately and pathetically to siphon viewers away from what is ostensibly its replacement, AEW Dynamite. There's no momentum by the stars. The momentum is AEW. People don't want to hear that. The establishment fans that have been following this and they're in a WWE bubble, they don't want to hear that AEW is getting ground. And they're going to keep bashing the fact, oh, we only got 1 million viewers. Yeah. They had to overcome constant competition and a lot of effort being done by the biggest company in sports entertainment in wrestling. Because the biggest company in wrestling, Vince McMahon, paid attention to AEW and said, you know what, they're considered a threat. And they've been thought like that since day one. And again, I said it from the beginning, NXT was thrown to the wolves to stifle AEW's growth. Stunt it. Can AEW get 1 million viewers this week or 900,000 viewers to show promise that they are continuing to grow regardless of what NXT is supposed to be doing? Maybe. Come back to me next week and we'll talk about it. But it comes down to the fact that could it really make a difference? Could very well be. So Michael says there is no real need for NXT, except there is. WWE doesn't just gobble up every indie talent with something of a buzz that's around them. NXT can still exist as a more logically sound, action-oriented WWE show, but it can't exist as either an on-screen developmental league or the platform to main roster success, because to stave off the profound success of overfamiliarity that pervaded everything, these indie-honed talents need to jump directly to Raw or SmackDown to reinvigorate flagship programming that automatically dates itself by debuting new talent whose stories largely have already been told to the same audience. What needs to happen is they need to quit going after the free agents. No more indie stars from somewhere else. Build your own. Because what's happening as well, they need to quit worrying about the legacy of WWE always having to have the best working talent. They don't know what to do with good workers. Only a select few do they ever do that with. Be honest. That's what they do. They only work with a number of good workers that will stand out. So AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan are the true workers that have stood out among everybody. Look at the ones that do push. They don't want to have all good workers. Because then the company then must do something else if they can't get good workers. If you're going to get somebody that's based on the look, the size that you want, a Braun Strowman's not going to be working like a Daniel Bryan or an AJ Styles. So use him as such. This is what they used to do. If Kane wasn't that good of a wrestler, you do something with him to make him important. Why can't you do the same thing here with Braun Strowman? That's what it comes down to. You got to be able to do something to make them stand more out, but you're not. Do you want Braun Strowman to be much more like a good Kane or a great Khali? Ask yourself the question. Do you want him to be more of a Big Show, or do you want him to be more of an Undertaker? Ask yourself the question. NXT should go back to the WWE Network if they could, and then work themselves again as... Because I think if you take the NXT time slot right now, make it something else. Just create a new brand name for the show. Make it main event, make it superstars, whatever. Keep the talent you have right now, right? Don't call it NXT anymore. Take the NXT, the revolutionary brand, move it back to the network, okay? And then you make that back to developmental. I think that's what you do. But the NXT brand, you make it something else. Make it like a Ring of Honor. I'm really serious. They should just go ahead and make it a standalone brand, much like a Raw or SmackDown. Do that. Enough of this right here with the NXT stuff. NXT should go back to developmental and move it back. That's what you do. And I think with the NXT things that you do, you go back and say, like, make North American champion. You know what? I don't think you take one of those belts from NXT, keep it on the new brand, and that's it. Kind of like how ECW was. That's what that should be, but it should not be for the new stars. It should be for the workers. That's what you have right now. Make it for the workers. The guys you have right now. I mean, maybe not 205 Live, but make it something like it is now. But I don't know. Find another hybrid for it. Make it where it's the workers. This is the work rate show. Not a 205 Live, but keep it where NXT is like it is right now. But NXT goes back to developmental. And then you have some of these stars that you have that were developmental talent. You're trying to build up. So make Velveteen Dream another focus over there. Make Babatunde or Induce Hair or whatever. Or, take Drake Maverick back over there and take over Killian Dane. These are all guys that you brought over there from somewhere else that really didn't have a name with the American circuit. And do that. And then what you do, make it like a worldwide thing. Because honestly, if you do it like a worldwide show, you incorporate the NXT UK you have right now, incorporate those stars into this. So it's work rate, work rate, work rate. So NXT should not be on USA Network. They should just create a new show. But a lot of the familiar faces stay there, so it's really not going to change much. And NXT goes back to USA Network. Or back to the WWE Network. That's what you do. That's what I would do. I really think it wouldn't be a bad idea. All right, so a few things I want to talk about when it comes to creative and what people are doing. A couple little tidbits I want to bring up here before we're going to wrap things up. Mike Bennett has actually been working in creative meetings right now. Oh, he talked about the creative meetings and how they've been. And right now he's no longer there. SE Scoops put the story together. And really quickly is that Mike Bennett was on SiriusXM's Busted Open Radio. And he said about Vince McMahon, I said, just let me go for a couple of years and maybe I'll come back and we'll figure this out. Bennett would continue. He straight up told me, I've seen you work. I think you're good. We just have to find the right storyline that fits. We just have to find the right place for you. I got 1 million guys right now. Mike Bennett would then discuss his own personal views on the chairman. He said, quote, one thing I respect about Vince, he was always brutally honest with me. He never sugarcoated anything. I respected that. It was just other people that were in that company that would sugarcoat things for me or just try to do things. But Vince, if I went to him directly, he always straight up told me what was going on. And in terms of Vince being distracted, he says that his creative meetings with McMahon were beneficial, but it was easy for McMahon to get distracted. Quote, we did have those conversations where we had many opportunities where me and Maria were in there and we pitched stuff. Vince always seemed open to it, and he was respectful of everything. They just didn't materialize, and I don't know how that works. I'll go in there, tell Vince one thing he might like it, but then Roman Reigns goes in there, Seth goes in, Bray goes in right after me. And Vince probably doesn't remember it after that, which sucks. It sucks for smaller guys. We're trying to get our names up there, but at the end of the day, it's just how that company works. So that's what they're talking about when it comes to Vince and how he handles things. Meantime, we've heard about people trying to go ahead and help contribute in the creative era. We know about that. Now Jeff Hardy wants to try to get involved. So at the moment, WWE has a couple of superstars on the writing team. Daniel Bryan and Edge have been contributing. We've talked about that before. And Jeff Hardy revealed to BT Sport he signed a new contract with WWE. And he opened about his interest about helping out behind the scenes as his career winds down. He says, quote, ultimately, I'd love to be involved in music as I age, but I think I'll be secretly involved with wrestling for the remainder of my life. You know, like creatively, whether it's behind the scenes as like a writer or just an idea pitch guy or whatever. Then you have the third person commenting about the creative, Kevin Owens. So Kevin Owens, so far, we know he's been around for a number of years. Great NXT run in a short time. One of the best. Very well booked at the beginning with John Cena coming into the main roster. He's been a former NXT champion, former Universal champion, 2-time IC champion, 3-time US champion. He's had some of the best feuds there have been. The Festival of Friendship, all that's been good. Stuff with Shane McMahon wasn't bad. Not great, but it wasn't bad. Now, the word is Kevin Owens is usually an agreeable person, like backstage, respected for his hard work and dedication, loves pro wrestling, grew up as a fan before climbing into Vince's company through the indies. Ringside News has learned that the stress for Owens has changed his demeanor backstage. He's not as happy as he used to be. A member of the creative team with knowledge of the situation told us that he's just pissed off by his inconsistent pushes. And it's made him a total asshole in some respects. So the word is Kevin Owens is legit unhappy about his inconsistent stop-start pushes. The promo on Raw talk was heated. They're trying to fix this with better booking. Owens was concerned about WWE not following the CDC mask social distancing guidelines, spoke to Vince, and said he would go home if it wasn't corrected. Again, I understand standing for a cause, but again, for Vince, is this one of those hills you want to go ahead and die on in order to go ahead and get a point? And that might be a culprit as to why he's where he is right now. It's not a right thing, but that might be just what was happening. Anyways, there's a lot to be said. I could go on and do hours and hours of creative talk like this, but again, I think taking what I took tonight and adding that into the mix was not a bad way to go to explain things. But again, this is all falling on deaf ears. Will the company actually hear this somewhere, somehow? I don't know. But I think the pandemic can also play a little bit of a role of what's going on here. I'm not going to completely downplay that the WWE right now is not doing some good things. There's always a couple of things they're doing right, and we already pointed those out. So again, constructive criticism, but at least something to be constructive, not just shooting this all down. I just don't know what you do, especially, and the problem is this is a cable audience. To get people to go and watch stuff on cable when people are just getting accustomed just to go to Netflix or their Amazon Fire Stick or their Chromecast or their Roku, I just think people are just kind of accustomed not to go over to watch wrestling. You got to get people a significant reason to go ahead and go back over, because the trend right now is to go watch stuff on streaming. You got to get them back over. They might watch the pay-per-views, but if you want them to watch the in-between, you got to give them a really good reason to come back to cable, because that's what's going on right now. Get them to come back to cable. Come back to the rabbit ear. Watch Fox. Watch USA for their programs. Because for the most part, people are watching cable for sports. Maybe a couple different TV shows. But the audience that used to be out there is not even close to what it is right now. And the pandemic has really changed things a lot. Viewing habits are changing a lot more cable cutting because of the affordability. And you got to think about that too. Even though you're not putting a price point on cable for these shows, Fox is a free show, nevertheless. But the Raw show, remember, that's still a premium cable channel for some. If they're going to want to get cable, they got to be able to watch it. You got to give them a reason to go and want to watch that channel, not want to cut the cable. You got to give them a good reason. So I'll leave it there. We're going to come back next week, another Wrestling Goes Wrong podcast. I'm sure a few more things will happen between now and then to cause a stir and make yours truly the king of podcasts talk about it some right here. So anyway, till next week, come back for another Wrestling Is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling Is Real podcast, brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and on Facebook at Wrestling Is Real. Subscribe to the Wrestling Is Real podcast through all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also look for episodes on his YouTube channel, youtube.com/JBRASCO951. You can find all this information and more by going to the website, WrestlingIsReal.com.